today. Thank you for joining. God. Thank you for joining the exploration. Freed to love, forgiveness, and being a people of peace. I'm grateful also for the people near and far who are upholding this session in the spirit, and especially on site, Joe Snyder, who is serving as elder. I'm grateful for all of our ancestors in faith, a great cloud of witnesses who have gone before us, and for the Swinomish lands where I live, and the native lands under our feet today. I'm Chris Hall. She, her are my pronouns. I'm known to many of you, and I invite you, if you want, to raise your hand if you've been part of a Way of the Spirit retreat or online workshop. Yes, yes, thank you for all being here. You can talk to them about me if you want. They'll mostly say good things, I hope. I've been in Quaker circles since the late 80s. I'm an educator, a retreat facilitator, and a spiritual director or companion. My roots are in Roman Catholicism, especially in the mystical stream and the Jesuit tradition of social justice. I founded and direct Way of the Spirit, a retreat and a program for retreats and learning, contemplative practices for compassionate action. I also served for 8 years as adjunct faculty at Seattle University School of Theology and Ministry. I'm an ecumenical kind of gal. I've appreciated varied language about the holy. But it's actually the experiential theology and what difference that makes for good. So we're going to begin today with an experiential reflection, your personal experience to ground and inform this morning's exploration. It's about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And I invite you to consider it a kind of prayer or spiritual practice. This reflection, you'll be invited to explore your sensibilities around forgiveness and unforgiveness. It uses your sense of smell and taste to engage your stories. You'll be turning inward, scanning your own history, and it helps to start close to home rather than with global figures or issues. But if something triggers a difficult personal memory, please do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Move, leave, tune me out, drop into another form of quiet worship. The Spirit always honors our freedom. And afterwards, we'll take a few minutes to reflect in quiet. And if you have a pen and paper, you can write down what you want to remember. So let's center again in the quiet, noticing our swirling thoughts, wondering if there's any to set aside to help you be fully present here. Sit comfortably, take a few deep breaths. Close your eyes if you wish. Bringing your full attention to this moment in your body, even how it feels to sit on this chair. If you want, you can put your hand on your heart to feel the life beating there. Welcoming Holy Word in your body today. Welcoming your senses as doorways. And then think about your sense. your sense, drawing molecules that we name smell, and how powerful smell could be as a memory trigger. Think of the things you love to smell. Fresh mown grass. Anything you smell now. Try smelling with love. Think of tasting something that makes you smile. For me, that would be kettle corn. Spiritual smelling and tasting. We're receiving what is here as a gift, an opportunity for soulful attention. Welcome our senses as doorways for the Spirit. Now imagine a bitter taste, something unpleasant to you. Vinegar, coffee grounds, baker's chocolate. Does it have a smell too? Let your body reveal your reaction to you. None of us are looking, we're backing off, the clenching, or bracing. What is tight? When we hold unforgiveness within, it can do something like this in us. What with aftertastes of resentments, judgments, even hatred? A letter to the early followers of Jesus' way of forgiveness urged all to, quote, strive for peace with everyone, that no bitter root starts growing, causing trouble. That's in Hebrews 12. Keep this bitter taste or smell in mind as you reflect. You can ask the Spirit to show you where there is bitterness in your heart towards yourself, something for which you have not forgiven yourself. And pay attention to what comes to mind. Don't shame yourself, please. Aim for a gentle, compassionate gaze on your own stories. The holy isn't accusing or condemning you. The source of love wants your healing, and that you know holy release, freedom from this bitterness. Any bitterness within you toward yourself. Then ask the Spirit to lead you to any bitter root in your heart toward someone else. Again, just listen, don't shame yourself. Notice kindly, try softer. What if there is a holy goodness that longs to free you to forgive? You might notice that there's bitterness within toward reality itself, the times we must live through, our situations, our political divisions, our broken systems and structures. Finally, recall your bitter taste or smell again, and then ask the divine to show you if you have any bitterness toward the holy. For some way, the spirit has disappointed. Now turn it around. Wonder for a moment what forgiveness might taste or smell like. For me, it's something like peppermint or the best mandarin oranges in the middle of winter. What might forgiveness smell or taste like to you? And silently name some words to describe the smell or taste. Fresh, open. Does this smell or taste bring memories, feelings? Notice any shifts in your posture, even. Just even thinking, even imagining that smell. Imagine a deep of forgiveness, a deep inhalation. What if it could permeate and cleanse your palate? What could this new smell or flavor be like in your being? So whatever bitterness has risen for you, this fresh, this openness and renewed energy is possible with that. Wonder when you might be ready. And please, as we continue today, hold on to the through the weekend. It's this that we're exploring, hoping for, and walking into together. And of course, taste or smell doesn't bestow forgiveness or make it happen. Our sense of smell or taste is one way to experience the truth of the cleansing power of the holy in our being. Our nose can follow the lingering scent into the spirit. Our spiritual taste buds can stand at attention, receptive flavors of a new day and to fresh promptings of guidance. So when you're back home again, I hope it'll occur to you to engage your senses to help step into forgiveness. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Take a few moments to write down anything you wish to remember from this exercise. It's for a couple minutes. We'll have time to share what you wish of this in pairs after I've done a little bit of framing. But for now, I'd like to hear a few words from those of us who wish to speak. A word or a phrase in response, please. And I'm going to repeat it so that it can be heard by all. So give us a little bit of slow pacing, and also so that the folks online can add in if they wish. They'll need to unmute and speak. What were some of the tastes or smells of unforgiveness? Unforgiveness in you. Speak freely, a word or a phrase.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
Dandelion.
Dandelion.
Candy cane.
Candy cane. Unforgiveness. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Vinegar.
Vinegar.
Dust.
Sorry?
Dust.
Dust. Thank you. Anyone online?
Scar.
Sorry?
Scar.
Scar. Scar. How about some words or phrases? No. To describe the smell or the taste of forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Mango.
Mango.
The feel of a spray from a waterfall.
The feel of the spray from a waterfall.
Freedom. Meaning burden falling away.
Freedom, as in a burden falling away.
Cinnamon.
Forgiveness. As we are as human beings. Okay, I'm going to offer a little bit of framing before we send you off into pairs. You need to know I'm a pie in the sky kind of person. So I'm all about a people lie down together, where swords are beaten into plowshares and the poor and oppressed are liberated and the people study war no more. I've tasted it in the here and now, the new creation, the reign of heaven among us. Maybe you have too. And we've seen in recent months and years how very, very far our world are from that ideal. We lament war in Ukraine, refugees, racism, colonialism, climate crisis, the fracturing of our democratic structures. How long, oh God, how long? To speak of forgiveness into the chaos, divisiveness, violence, outrage, lies, is to swim against mighty tides. So I ask your prayerful support to release the message of hope I've been given, that my words are truly guided, that our ears and hearts are living. So this is a both and introduction to forgiveness and being a people of peace, recognizing real hurts, real suffering, and living into divine possibilities. Because I trust and experience that God is always present and active between us, among us. I've been led to recognize and join the holy motions of love, even through the tangles and the big harms done to us. That's what being a person or a people of peace means to me. Forgiveness is a game changer, a holy motion of love. And my purpose here is to help us stretch to do more of it. So I'm going to offer a few definitions and thoughts to frame our exploration, invite sharing in pairs, and illustrate with a personal story close to my heart. We'll conclude with some queries to take into worship sharing groups. And before you leave, you'll have a sheet with those queries, for a few quotes for reflection that I'll reference, and a listing of some relevant Hebrew and Christian scriptures if you want to look at that. Definition. Forgiveness is simply release or letting go into the spirit. Release, like letting go of one end of a tug of war, or like dropping a backpack of rocks we've been carrying around for decades, like opening inner windows on a stuffy room that's been shuttered for years, breathing the scent of fresh spring air, damp with promise. Letting go. We can let go of condemnation, imperfections, failures, betrayals, what's missing or imperfect. We can let go of incompetence. We can let go of fallibilities. We can let go of ideals and expectations, achievements, unlikable people, control. More on that. Into the spirit. Divine justice bigger than mine, healing better than I can imagine, and love beyond all boundaries, so that I can join that spirit in responding and growing the new creation. We can forgive ourselves, others, reality, God. Forgiveness is simply release into the spirit. What's mine to say today addresses the inner experience of forgiveness, sensibilities, motions of that simple definition. Forgiveness is letting go into the spirit. These are subtle shifts that open into spiritual freedom to love more and more and receive love more and more. I'm all about the how this works in us. How do we grow spaciousness of soul that can welcome, include, stand with, and respond through pain with love? How to be a person or people of peace. So two inner motions of forgiveness I've experienced and witnessed in many others are trust and willingness. That's my focus today through my stories and your reflections on your own inner life. Today's queries for worship sharing are about your personal experience close to home, and tomorrow on your experience in community and the wider world. So to engage forgiveness with willingness and trust, it helps to reframe some mistaken or just unexamined notions on the topic. Forgiveness has been abused and misused. Yes, If that's part of your story, I am truly sorry. The paradigm offered today is meant to be life-giving and aligned with love. For 10 years in Way of the Spirit, we've been trying out more spacious language, releasing into the Spirit. And I pray you can give yourself some grace to explore this simple approach. And is restoration of relationship. With forgiveness and the Spirit may lead us to reconcile, but may not. Relationship may not be healthy or possible. Discernment's needed. Quakers can do that with good questions and honest answers. What's toxic, right? What's needed for all to thrive in love? Regardless, forgiveness is always possible as release into the Spirit. Misguided notions of forgiveness I've recognized in myself or others. That not forgiving myself would somehow hold me to a higher standard, make me a better person. That not forgiving others would protect me somehow from further hurt, from betrayals, or prove how horrible the harm was. Not forgiving reality would somehow help me cope with disasters like storms, pandemics, cancer. And I never even considered that I might be holding something against God's very self. I was. The truth is more like contemporary author Anne Lamott wrote. Not forgiving is like drinking rat poison and waiting for the rat to die. To step into the positive, it helps to reframe the messes that we humans make of our relationships. The failures and weaknesses of others and myself are part of being human, how we're built, how our differences bump up against one another's. Our wires get crossed, we get kinks in the hose, we hurt each other's, and the troubles compound. The messes we make in relationships are like tangles. Some tangles are small, some hurts are massive and turn toward big destruction. You'll hear tangles from me more than traditional language or terms for our failures and ways we hurt each other. It's got less baggage. Tangles means the messes we make in our relationship quite naturally. Tangles have their own markers: defensiveness, needing to prove oneself right, resentments, unhealed woundedness that erupts into wounding others. And we can tighten the tangles into knots with more shoulds and oughts, including I'm supposed to forgive, ugh, right? Shoulds and oughts, and the associated guilt or shame about what a horrid human being I am because I can't forgive. Tangles are simply not helpful to relationships. They bind us. They inhibit free movement, agility in the spirit. To mix metaphors, tangles can be corrosive and eat away at connectedness. But it's the nature of relationships and humans, cultures, that we tangle. Maybe 9 out of 10 tangles between people can be untangled with the Spirit and working together in holy partnership. It's helpful to remember, of course, that most people are not good or bad, smart or idiotic. I'm sure each of us know good people on another side of our vast cultural divides. Failures or tangles are the very stuff of relationship. Marty Grundy and Connie Green, authors of a Pendle Hill pamphlet on forgiveness titled Matthew 18, even say that we need our faith communities to practice forgiveness on, like laboratories of the Spirit. Maybe we're even given to each other for that purpose. There is a power that can sort it all out, make something of it and us, heal us, and open way forward. The holy does the miracles. We don't have to. That divine love is a transformative kind of love. So we need not descend into shame or guilt over what goes sideways. Tangles, failings are part of the natural repertoire of relationships to ourselves, to each other, our community, and God. Forgiveness is a totally reliable way to untangle, to restore the flow of God's presence between us. So how do we do that? We're zooming in on forgiveness. In me, in you. The subtle inner shifts that mark authentic forgiveness, trust, and willingness. It's these shifts more than certain words, thoughts, or actions that make forgiveness genuinely freeing. If forgiveness is letting go, it helps to trust what we're releasing to. Sometimes we hold on to unforgiveness because we imagine the problem won't get addressed without our attachment to it, without our pain, without our anger, without our frenzied problem solving, without our personal control over what happens to the cause of our hurt. How are you with control? Anybody got that covered?
Oh, yeah.
Don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I realize that control is mostly an illusion anyway. The illusion of control has many guises, some of which can be unmasked in me, maybe in you, by asking of our bitterness, what am I believing about holding on to this? What am I believing about holding on to this unforgiveness? What do I think will happen? Is that true? And then we're back to rat poison. Because unforgiveness harms us, binds us to the past and to the pain. So I want to encourage us to wonder instead what happens if we trust a greater love to hold and fix the wounds and broken relationships. This kind of trusting forgiveness is not passive inaction. It's a shift in the source of our action, freeing space for holy love to guide us. So we'll know what's ours to do, gain wisdom to know what we can change. We might get to be part of all that holy recreation, but with the spirit of love instead of anger or the reactivity of our wounds. An offering of peppermint into a tangled situation, a channel of compassion, a channel of peace. Possibilities open as we begin to trust divine mercy as a better container for suffering than our own tangled hearts and stressed bodies. So how can we grow in this kind of trust? It might help to notice who or what you already trust. with your inner hurts and tangles? Do you trust a journal, a good friend, a life partner, a therapist, a spiritual director or companion, or an elder in your faith community? Remember what that's like. If you can settle into a good, trusting memory and notice your posture, your emotional tone, the thoughts that come, that kind of trust. Whatever we feel or think with those care witnesses surely echoes the greater trustworthiness of the divine. And still, our images of the holy may be inadequate to the task of forgiveness. They may not yet be worthy of trust. So what images or concepts of the divine might you be willing to trust? What would a trustworthy sacredness be like for you? Sound like, feel like, move like, look like? And these images might come from scripture or from your experience, and they might reflect your approach to trust and your relationship with the holy. How's your trust in the Spirit? That's worth exploring. The second inner motion to bring forward today, it happens with forgiveness, happens with trust and willingness. I take a lot of my sense of willingness from 12-step spirituality. There are important phrases in steps 6 and 8 that apply to many of life's pivot points. Became willing and were entirely ready. They help me realize we can become willing. The inner yes of willingness may be the actual when it happens in us. But willingness has been a sticky point for me. There are a lot of yes buts in my head. So pay attention to your yes buts. So I did some digging. The synonyms for willingness in an online thesaurus closest to my sense of a helpful kind of willingness seem to be consent, receptiveness, and amenability. Consent, that inner yes. Receptiveness, like centering prayer, or our best orientation to Quaker open worship, or mindfulness, receptive, an intentional stepping back rather than doing something. Receptive of divine initiative rather than my own. And amenable, as in open and responsive to suggestion. Guidable. Guidable. A willing yes or consent to forgiveness is an inner shift no one can do for us. Again, the Spirit honors our freedom. So it helps to notice when our sense of will, it helps to notice our sense of will when we're having trouble with forgiveness. Seriously, look around within. What's your will doing? You can imagine it as a character in your inner community gathered around a table for listening and decision making. When all the facets of our being are present, have their voice, it can be like a great Quaker meeting for business. The holy might speak through your mind, emotions, body, feelings, inner child, inner parent, your own spirit, or your own will. You name the characters. Wise teacher and ministry colleague Jan Wood describes a healthy will in our inner community as the oomph between thought and action. Oomph, that's a technical term. It's the energy. It's the bounce or vigor. It's the force that gets us outside to exercise, or what makes the plan for clearing the air with someone happen after all. Self-oriented will can get out of right size within us in either direction. Too big or too loud, and I jump into action without thought or discernment. But too small, and I never get anything done. Turned toward the holy, something different happens. Because each facet of our being needs to have its own encounter with the holy, or turning to be oriented toward the divine. The will, too. I'm aware that historically, my will in failures, disappointments, mistakes, hurts, and hurting others has been to berate myself, blame others, or want to fix things. For my will to offer its oomph or energy toward forgiveness, I need to trust something bigger and better is possible. So forgiveness can then be like the will standing down or letting go of self-will to allow spirit will to flow. And I'm receptive to return to synonyms for willingness. I can get clear on what's mine to do, right leading and actions. They can flow into that free space created by release of self-oriented will. 12-step programs also say you can't teach a fourth willingness. It's an individual choice in the end. Programs, reading, therapy, even addiction treatment can only help uncover any hidden seed of willingness within. So how's your willingness to forgive, to let go of any bitterness within toward yourself, others, reality, or God? Do you want to taste that fresh or soothing goodness? I want to be quiet for a minute and let that settle. Sometimes I test my willingness. Am I willing to be willing to forgive? Am I willing to forgive? Sometimes I just get stuck right there. There's nothing wrong with that. I notice what I'm feeling, sitting with compassion, with the reality and the spirit, asking, what am I believing about this situation? Myself, my feelings, is that true? Wisdom teachers Don Russo and Russ Hudson offer some helpful forgiveness affirmations. I'm going to read a few before some pairs appearing. And there's a handout coming, so you don't need to write these down. These affirmations invite a way into the pit to the tangles or big hurts within or between. They can help, as Russo and Hudson say, begin to loosen the structures that hold our hurts and resentments in place. Presence fills us and releases us from our bondage to the past. Note on language, they use the word forgive, but you can substitute with release or letting go if forgiveness has unhelpful baggage. Sometimes a new word can open new doors. A new question rises, like, release from what? Or am I willing to release someone from my resentment, my revenge, or my control? Am I willing to let them have their own lives and mistakes? And remember, we're not releasing into a vacuum. It's the spirit, it's the presence and power of the holy that handles things in ways we can't imagine. As I read the affirmations aloud, you might hold a person or situation in mind. It might be helpful to start small, not the worst hurt you've endured, or political warmongers you don't know personally. It's a chance to try with a bitterness you recognized when we began. You might notice which line has most energy for you. It snags your attention. It might stir emotion, feel weighty. Notice where you really are rather than where you'd like to be or think you should be. And you can repeat inwardly to yourself that phrase or that word as I continue reading. Hold on to that line in whatever situation or person it evokes. I am willing to be willing to forgive myself for my mistakes. I am willing to forgive myself for my mistakes. I forgive myself for my mistakes. I see my mistakes as opportunities for learning discernment and patience. I thank life for giving me opportunities to become more wise and accepting. I'm willing to be willing to forgive those who have hurt me. Or insert the name of one person. I am willing to forgive those who have hurt me. I forgive those who have hurt me. I see the hurt I have suffered as an opportunity to learn compassion. I thank life for giving me a spirit that is forgiving and compassionate. Thank you, Fred. I'd like to share a story, a brief story to close. From our contemporary culture wars, a small story on forgiveness and peacemaking in my own life. In the fall of 2021, last fall, my beloved sister in a distant state had a serious case of COVID-19. Heidi was never hospitalized, but dangerous pneumonia required top-notch medical care and a month-long recovery. She and I are very close. We talk several times a week and share a sense of the sweetness of the inner life of faith. All that, even though our politics, our faith traditions are a world apart, and I share this story with her permission. Heidi refuses vaccination. Early in her month-long COVID experience, I sought reassurance that she'd not tried a particular off-label treatment, and she had, and I was horrified. And I verbally erupted on the phone with fear, confusion, outrage. No, you can imagine. It was not pretty. It took me a couple of days to calm down, enough to reconnect with her while she's sickened regardless. Then I apologized for my unhelpful outburst. I wished to be clear with her in love, not judgment. So forgiveness was the way through. I forgave her, she forgave me. I could be loving and supportive in regular calls as she slowly recovered. We reconciled. The relationship was restored. That's all good, but it's not the whole story. A month later, Heidi surprised me with a question about a friend of hers who'd not called or offered support during her illness. Heidi was mad, hurt, betrayed. She thought maybe the friendship was over. So this friend and I share political leanings. So Heidi asked, how could I stay connected with her when the friend couldn't? And the answer was forgiveness. But it took me several days to sort the details into a lengthy letter. I'll share parts of it today. The process of letting go of release into the spirit wasn't quick. So I made a list of all of the things I needed to forgive. I needed to forgive the why of her illness, that it might have been avoided. I needed to forgive that my persuasive efforts towards vaccination failed. That the seeming fact that the impact of her getting sick on those who loved her didn't make the difference in her choice to forgo vaccination. All with high levels of frustration, disbelief, sorrow, and horror that she might die. I needed to forgive the consequences of her choice. Massive medical resources needed, thousands of dollars, exposure of multiple healthcare workers who were overloaded and some traumatized, we know. It was a lot of inner wrestling so I could be fully present to my sister and her crisis. I leaned into some solid spiritual tools and relationship with God. It might have been easier to keep an emotional distance, but I was not led to disconnect from this person I loved. I had to untangle threads of responsibility in a really complicated situation, mixed feelings, yes, and choose to forgive and respond in love. I wrote out what all that processing might look like for people like me and Heidi's friend. I wrote, we have to notice, i.e., why am I so reluctant to be sympathetic? Then wade through confusion. What is mine to carry here? Which is yours to carry? How do I let you live and choose and maybe die so differently than I hoped? And pray through it. Where is love calling me right now? Before we could become clear to be fully present and loving. I added, if you read that list a couple of times, the complexity of it might come through. I even wondered in my letter if our reconnection in love and forgiveness might need to be mutual. What did she need to forgive of the people who love her? Our anger, our desire for things not to have turned out this way, political differences. I closed with, I love you. I hope something in here opened into new understanding and loving possibilities. I'm listening and trying to learn if you want to reflect with me further. So it was a gift to put words on my experience of forgiveness, but I was scared. How would this truth be received? Would she attack my logic, my family loyalty, my faith? Were our days of camaraderie over? Was reconciliation going to be possible? I needed to release those fears into the spirit too, forgiving myself and this mind-boggling situation for endangering our relationship. And Heidi responded with grace and gratitude. Contemporary Quakers Marty Grundy and Connie Green again wrote in that Pendle Hill pamphlet, forgiveness means that I am no longer bound by what happened to me. The offense no longer exerts power over me. I was free. It smells like a cool breeze carrying hints of spring. A surprise ending to this story with my sister put a cherry on top. A few days after my letter, still waiting for a way to reconnect with her friend, Heidi discovered a series of text messages on her phone. It turned out that in the first couple of weeks of Heidi's illness, her friend had texted many times. Heidi may even have responded, but she had no memory of it, none. COVID brain fog is real. For me, oh wait, Heidi, of course, was mortified, right? and promptly reached out to a friend with gratitude for the support and heartfelt apologies for suggesting otherwise. For me, several thousand miles away, the turnaround felt oddly humorous. The holy seemed to be smiling at how a non-happening prompted me to reflect so thoroughly on my experience of forgiving. If some good comes of my sharing of it, then I'm grateful.
So it isn't me.
Tomorrow's queries you'll see on the sheet there are focused on peacemaking in our communities and the wider world. So let's close with Martin Luther King Jr. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. One who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. Thank you. And now it's time to break and head toward worship sharing. Thank you.